everyone. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker Training. I'm Richard Carlton, creator of FM Train at TV, where it is Friday. We're very excited. The main reason I'm excited is that we finally got all our ducks lined up with the SMS, and we even discovered more validations and things you have to do. So once again, we said, hey, we're going to do 2 days of SMS, everyone. And that reminds me, Margaret, we're over there playing. We need to see if we can find that if we had that sample file, which did the Apple script on it. I don't know where that was at. If you remember where that's at, we'll talk about that if we can. Anyway, welcome to an awesome day of FileMaker Training. I'm going to go to opening. Let me say, did that already? I'm going to say the upcoming broadcast schedule is Twilio right here. Today's another Twilio day. Let me run through what we've got going on. So the live stream yesterday was kind of this introductory conversation about SMS. And I'm going to bring this up real quick here, if it will allow me to open it. Here's the SMS. So a lot of you are like, oh my God, I can't believe all this is here, right? So here's the deal with SMS. This ain't a 5-minute process. It should be in the world of tech has gotten better, tech has gotten faster. Once again, as a reminder for those of you who weren't here yesterday, there is a huge end of this thing where the powers that run the phone systems with SMS, at least in the United States, are highly regulating to make sure that bad people and fraudsters don't have access to send out spam messages. Now, they still get out, so you still get spam messages, and I've got whatever you probably don't need, they're trying to sell to you, right? So they're trying to stop most of that traffic, but some of it still gets through. And every time that those people get through, they figure ways of making it harder for basically the fraud people to spam you. And it makes it harder for us to get inside. So let's talk about this real quick. This live stream is for basically beginner people to be aware of it's here. Really, it's at an intermediate level. So really at an intermediate level. Margaret's very much this intermediate developer, and this is her first API integration. Even though she had a sample file, she had to wrestle with it. Even today, she made some discoveries. We're going to have her run through those discoveries. For those of you who are like triple ninjas, that's, this is stuff you already know, probably, with the exception of probably the way Twilio runs you through the meat grinder. And it's not really a Twilio issue. Twilio is a service provider, right? So anyway, let's talk about this real quick. So the setup for SMS is a 10-minute process, a 15-minute, an hour process. It's pretty small and manageable. Someone said, oh, it should be a 5-minute effort, right? Yeah. If you see videos from other companies on the internet, other database companies, they get online, they post stuff, and they say, yeah, it's a 5-minute process or 10-minute process. And what they didn't tell you is that you're going to spend a week or 2 weeks just wrestling with the internet people to validate that you are a responsible, real company. It's not just, Richard's unsolicited text messages. Who wants that? I don't want that. So we get some responses. We talked about responses. So this right here. So when we fire and forget to send the message off to Twilio, Twilio could come back with messages response. I'm going to cover this stuff real quick. But really, at the end of the day, the first thing you have to do, Margaret's going to cover this, is that you're going to have to authenticate into the, we'll get to you, Margaret. We'll have you dive through this in detail. The issue is that you have to authenticate FileMaker, either FileMaker Server or FileMaker Pro, or technically FileMaker Go, or even WebDirect, which is really FileMaker Server. They have to be able to talk to and successfully connect to the Twilio servers, to the Twilio service. So once again, if I have a screenshot over here, and this is our FileMaker server, Twilio's another server that's up here in the cloud, right? So it could be over here in the cloud. And so you're talking to FileMaker server, your FileMaker Pro script can talk to Twilio. A script running on FileMaker server can talk to Twilio. So really, that's kind of the default standard. We're doing an insert from URL. It's a URL basic. It's a URL or a REST call. So we're making a REST API call to Twilio. We send them the data. We have to log in first successfully. Then we have to send them the payload, the data that we want them to process. They do an initial triage on what we send to them. The phone numbers involved, things like that, the message and like that, and then they will do an initial feedback of whether it was successful or not. By default, if it's successful, the error response that comes back from Twilio is null. Null is basically, for those of you, it's empty. It's the idea of a empty. It's not even zero. So a lot of times zero and null can be considered the same thing, but null is really the vacuum of space. So if I put a number field and I put zero in a number field, that's zero is a real number. Okay. If there's nothing in a number field or a text field, like literally nothing's in there, that's a vacuum of space, that's null, N-U-L-L. So if you successfully send them the message and they get it, then they will send you back no error code, no error message, no nothing, right? It means it worked. What ends up happening, however, is that then they attempt to send it on your behalf, and if it doesn't go through for some reason, then that will generate an error message, and Margaret's going to show us kind of this. We're going to walk through this.
Yes. So, which I can now do that if we want to try to do that. So.
Yeah, I'm going to have to finish this, and then we can go into the details, Margaret, of the actual demo.
Okay, got it.
All right, because yeah, I need to finish this. So what we established yesterday, we told everyone that there were really two levels of authorization. That's not really, the word authorization right there is not a great word. There's I would say three flaming hoops. There's always the joke about poodles at the circus, dogs jumping through a flaming hoop, or as a developer, your boss made you jump through a hoop. How many hoops did you jump through? My boss at NASA, I had to jump through 5 hoops. And really these are obstacles, okay? The first obstacle isn't that terribly hard. You have to have an account with Twilio. You have to sign up and have an actual account, if that makes sense, right? That's number one. The second one is harder. This is where you have to prove to Twilio that you're a real business and you're not trying to sell unsavory things, or you're a fraud person, or you're sending unsolicited text messages, which is a no bueno deal. Okay, so you have to you're going to have to submit some sort of government ID and also additional information about your company that they can validate with governmental records that you're a real person. So that way, if you violate the rule, one, they'll shut you off, and B, you may get an email or a note from the government or from someone saying that, you're in violation of this law and you're busted, right? So that's level 2. The third level of authorization, Margaret, if I have this correct, is the carrier. That's the part that jammed us up yesterday, is the carrier. You want to?
Yes. So basically, I didn't figure this out. Like, if you flip forward in the slides real quick, you'll find where I found it in their documentation finally. The white one right there.
This one.
Yes. So I had to go hunt this down. But basically what is saying is you get the campaign completed and registered. Nowhere does it say, by the way, Twilio doesn't own the phone numbers. The phone numbers are held by carriers. You're renting it from Twilio, and I assume Twilio somehow rents it from the phone carriers. So the carriers must be updated that this is what is happening with this phone number, that it's active and that it's allowed to do these kinds of things. I don't know how long that conversation takes. What I did know is that when I tried to do this live yesterday, when I saw that my campaign had finally been approved, aka my step 2 was complete, I tried to send a message and I got back this error. 324, numeric sender ID is not provisioned on carrier. And you will notice in the possible causes it lists, hey, if you have just done an A2P campaign, it could take a brief period of time for all carriers to provision the number for your campaign. Typically, you would see all messages towards a single carrier fail if the code isn't provisioned. Basically, we have technically authorized your campaign, but everyone else hasn't caught up yet.
So when you say we, Twilio.
Yes.
Twilio has approved you.
Yes.
But then they have to. So what Twilio does is they are buying or renting or leasing entire blocks of numbers, phone numbers. And I'm assuming the carriers, Jacob Taylor, if you're here, you want to jump in, but we're talking like AT&T, potentially Rogers Communications, some other big telco kind of companies that run that stuff. I don't even know if Verizon is one of those, because that's a cellular provider. Maybe they have that too. I assume they would. But the point is that you have to jump through hoops with Twilio. And once Twilio approves it, then they're going to pass on this alert to the carriers that, yes, we have approved this. and we're going to give it to the carrier, and the carrier is going to do whatever they do to provision it and or also review it. And so what we ran into yesterday was that Twilio had approved it, but the carrier who actually owns that phone number has not blessed it with an approved rubber stamp yet. And that magically happened this morning or late last night. So there was another delay in there of at least, for us, probably 24 hours, right? If not more. And so that's the idea. So it's really these additional hoops that have to jump through. Then magically today, it all turned on. Now, keep in mind, this question came up yesterday. The question is, well, if I use Claris Connect, do I have to still deal with all this mayhem? All Claris Connect does is they take the API, the little command in the script. Margaret's going to show this. In fact, I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now. They take this API, and if you want to share your screen, Margaret, and pivot into that. They take this and they just pass it on to Twilio for you. So you still had to go to Twilio. Claris Connect doesn't buy you anything. In fact, it buys you more complexity in the case of SMS messaging. It buys you more complexity and another service where you could run into a failure. Now, if Claris Connect actually did something valuable for me, and maybe with other systems and software they do, they have got a really checkered past, shall we say, right, with Connect. I have yet to actually, I have 2 customers out of 500 customers that have successfully used Connect. I guess Apple with education is using a lot of Connect, a variation of Connect, because Claris really deployed it with them. So anyway, so this is the code that Margaret has. So we worked on this yesterday a little bit. We were looking at it a little bit. Margaret, why don't you walk through the discoveries that you've made on this?
So basically, I'm going to do this by showing how you guys how I messed it up to begin with. We're gonna briefly what's it, the command? There we go. Going to briefly hide this so people don't have it. We'll set error capture off. So basically we were trying to figure out how we could get results, because we were trying to figure out what was like the good result. Like what reply is Twilio going to give you that lets you know, haha, success, you have done a great job. So me and Richard first wanted to figure out how it would fail, like what would be a bad result, right? So we did deliberately was we added a single character to my account ID at the very end of it, and then we sent a message to, let's do an actual number so we know that this is not the issue. 9017.
Okay.
And then test a lot. So we're gonna hit send SMS. Oh, I didn't hit save. So my code ran anyway. But what we discovered, which I will hold on. I'm gonna
I want you to save it and run it again. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do this again. Command save. Save. Okay. We're gonna try this again. FileMaker flings up an error to you. And you're like, huh? Okay, like FileMaker gave me an error. I didn't set my error capture on. But you will realize that if you go and look in your results, I don't think you get any result back actually, because Twilio was never reached. Basically what happens here is that it dies in FileMaker, or like FileMaker sends out the URL and it goes and knocks on Twilio's door, but Twilio looks out the door and sees a zombie, aka something that it doesn't want to let inside its house, and it goes like, eh.
Can you go over there, Margaret, real quick for me?
Yeah.
So it's right. Highlight the line, but it's down there. It's line 24. Yeah. So that is the actual attempted communication, and like Margaret's saying, Twilio requires that you successfully log into their service before they're going to give you an error code. And so what Margaret did is we turned on error capture up here, which we weren't doing. Then we run this right here. So this tells us if we're fundamentally failing before we ever get to Twilio. The number of code error message that FileMaker could generate on this is probably quite a few. It's upwards of, you don't have an internet connection, the DNS doesn't resolve, it can't find twilio.com or whatever DNS, the SSL doesn't match. There's probably 20 different codes you could get from FileMaker in the operating system as to why you couldn't connect, okay? Once Twilio connects, like this is successful here, like it's okay, like it's a green check right here, and it does it successfully. Then Twilio is going to, we're going to get the results back right here. Margaret, walk us through that real quick.
Once we actually do well, then Twilio can give us different problems. So I'm going to fix this. We have now moved past this. I'm going to fix my ID because you will recall that I added an extra character at the very end. And then we're going to get a good Twilio result first. So we're going to hit, we're going to say orange.
Okay.
And SMS. So I don't know if this was successful or not. Let's go check. Cool. And then we're going to go to messages. You will notice that from that number, which is the number that I have rented from Twilio, I now have orange with really interesting spacing because I hit space too many times. But the response from Twilio when it was good is, where is it? Error message null, error code null. Basically, it's telling you this is what I sent. Nothing bad has come back. So therefore, it's probably okay.
Yeah.
But if you have an authentication token and you mess this up somewhere, like let's do this, where I did not have the right number. And I try to send.
And this is your from number. So this is the number
Yes.
we're sending
Sending from. This
from.
is this number right here, the number that I received a message from.
This is the one that we were renting, that they
Yes.
had to provision and approve. Yes.
This was the rent number.
Yeah.
If I hit send SMS, you will get a response from Twilio because technically you had the correct key, so Twilio let you in the door, and then you fell over dead in their foyer, and it's like, oh, okay, well, now we're going to tell you what the problem is. And the problem is 21659, which basically is the from is not a Twilio phone number or short code counting mismatch. Basically, the number you're attempting to send from doesn't match any number we've got attached to you of any kind. So you should probably go look at that. This also shows up, fun fact, in Twilio. Like if I actually go to the website, this will also show up there. Twilio.com. If I log in. Yep. Please verify that I am in fact not a robot. If you go to monitor, it will tell you in the logs, messaging specifically. Hey, you just tried to send from this random number to here because technically it's my account and ID, so it knows that this is attached to my account. This attempt is attached to my account. And you'll get the same response here, which is basically, it's going to look at it and it's going to go like, yeah, the from is not a Twilio phone number or short code counting mismatch. So there's a couple places you can look to, you can get the result back from Twilio itself via in FileMaker like this, or you can actually go look on the website if you happen to own the account and go like, what happened? What occurred? Why is this not working? So, anything to add to that, Richard, or am I kind of just meandering now?
No, that's good. I'm sure there's a URL that you could call, or when you Margaret, do a correct one, right? Do one where it actually kind of, so let's say that we just put number 2 on there, just 2, number 2, add 2, there you go, send. So this is going to be a successful message. So that's the account ID, which we have. The token doesn't come back on that at all, right? And then what happens is if we come down here, there's probably a ID message or a message ID right down here somewhere, wherever the message is. And you could go back and get the status of that message, right? That's another URL that you could run, Margaret, to check to see if it was actually received. Because once again, Twilio grabbed it, they got it, if I go back over here to so if I come back over here to this graphic right here, if Twilio's over here, right, say they're over here, that if we authenticate to them correctly, then we don't get an error from the FileMaker error. That's where we had the FileMaker error. And then if Twilio gets our payload and they don't immediately object to the payload, then we will get back null, no error messages. It still doesn't mean it was received. It still doesn't mean the message was received by the other person. So it just means that Twilio didn't see any problems up front, but they might try to deliver it. Maybe you're over in the desert over there in the Middle East, and there's a bunch of jamming going on, and bombs are flying around, and fighter jets, and all sorts of shit. And I guarantee that we've had customers that talk to us that were in the desert, in and around that area, and all sorts of janky jamming and stuff was going on, and they couldn't get a Wi-Fi or a Starlink connection out. And as a result of that, they were offline. So if you were trying to send a text message to that person, Twilio is going to keep trying, and they're going to, and if you go back and query it, it'll tell you that it hasn't gone through yet, or it failed entirely, whatever it's going to do. That would be a follow-on you could do with this if you wanted to. I'm not sure that we want to get that involved with it with what our customer needs. I guess we could. It might be worthwhile to look at that, because that way when your customer says, well, I never got a text message from you, if Twilio says, yeah, you did, then you know that the customer is high, or they're lying, or there's a bigger problem somewhere, right? But you should, ideally, you'd have generally an idea that it had passed or it had failed, right? So that's something to think about. So a little more advanced. Margaret hadn't even thought about that yet, right? That's some new stuff, but that comes up as part of the conversation. So anyway, I'm going to stop sharing. If you want to go back and share, Margaret, real quick. Let me look around. I guess we should have questions. Andrew from Liverpool, people asking questions. Yeah, the API response is a key value pair. I'm not sure how you'd format it to make it look nice. I tried to run it through format elements, but it didn't know what to do with it. So I'm not a giant JSON person, and either is Margaret, but it's something we would do. Ed says he doesn't do any instant messaging. Yeah, yeah, Ed, yeah, it's just one of those sort of things. The question is, does the business model need it, right, with what's going on, right? And for us, the business model, I would avoid it just because of the pain in the ass of it. But we wanted to alert the parts person that their aircraft was stuck in maintenance and could not be flown home or given back to the customer because there's an essential oil filter or some O-ring. There's a million different little round O-rings in that stupid jet engine of the helicopter with all the moving parts. And if you don't have the one perfectly sized O-ring on a part, then it's stuck there. And they can't put it back together until they have the right O-ring. And so instead of her, maybe, and her name's Alexis, really nice lady, but maybe she leaves early on a Friday, but they find out at Friday at 2:00 that holy shit, this aircraft's stuck and we're screwed, and we really need it ordered. So they could alert her, and her phone would go off saying, hey, there's a priority alert. And then she might choose to place an order online Friday afternoon from home saying, oh yeah, this part's here, go ahead and get this going. So it's like an urgent alert thing, right? So let's see other questions. What's Twilio's pricing? If you're not spamming thousands of people, which you shouldn't be doing anyway, it's pretty cheap. So generally, as a rule, I'm just going to tell you it's really cheap. Let's see, where was the pricing at, Margaret? Do you have pricing in here anywhere?
Yeah, there's some of the pricing I missed. Like I would add.
Okay, yeah, we're on a $10 a month.
Yeah, and then there's like a little bit of extra. I think I forget exactly. Like your account has to have a certain amount of money on it, and it will automatically refill. Because like think about it, because the phone itself is like $150. And then Twilio wanted like a certain amount of money on the account. I think I picked $20 as like the baseline.
Back. Say that again. The phone number itself was what? You said $150?
No, 1 point, like $1.50.
Okay, yeah, well, you weren't clear on that. So
no, that's valid. Yeah, sorry.
Is that a one-time thing, or is that every month? That's probably every month, right?
My guess is it's every month, so I can log in to look at it myself a little.
Why don't we look at that? Yeah, at the end of the day, we're going to waste more money talking about this in terms of all our hourly rates than you would spend probably on a year on this. So I think it's, in my limited opinion, it's pretty minimal. Logs, go and click the logs.
Oh, yeah, logs. Sorry. It'll be development, I think. It'll tell you, like, if I go to phone numbers and I hit buy, right? Where is it? Manage, buy a number. Here we go.
It doesn't really talk about the monthly fee. Yeah, so you got that plus the $10 plus probably a penny or something like that
like
per message.
There's certain amount of money that you have to put in the account so it has money to draw from to send messages.
Yeah, I noticed like you put $20 in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And then also they require that you designate a time when it will automatically refill. Or they recommend, like they highly recommend, like, hey, if it falls beneath a certain amount of money on the account, you should let us refill it because otherwise everything is going to come to a screeching halt. Um, so
Yeah. So, Jacob Taylor, can I ask a question? In your opinion, what is the definition of volume texting? So, Jacob said, well, if you're doing volume texting, you might want to use some other service because Twilio might not be the cheapest. What is that? What would you make that? Like, is that a 500,000 texts a month, thousand,
Sure,
hundred,
that's a good number. Yeah. And in it,
500,000?
we all of the demos and all the people we've ever worked with
Mhm.
use this stuff on the order of under 10,000 texts a month.
Yeah.
Twilio is great. It's easy to implement. You can do it in an afternoon, except for all of the things you've heard about with their process being very slow now, because of various hoops you have to jump through. But the actual implementation is trivial.
Yeah, the onboarding is slow. Once it's running, I don't expect any problems now that it's running.
No.
In fact,
we've had the one that we use internally running for years without really any caretaking or maintenance. It's set up like Margaret just said to I don't know, deposit $20 when it's under 10 or something.
when you go underneath 10, yeah, that's the limit for it. So
yep, yeah. And so it just tops itself up, and we get an email every few months when that happens, and that's it. So
I don't know that we have too much for all of you. I think that this is an important skill set to have. Once again, I would assume that what we had done a couple of years ago would have been fine, but they're updating the hoops and they're checking. But I still keep getting phone calls from spam stuff, and I keep we block them and we tell them they're bad or report junk text messages and stuff. So anyway, yeah, kind of wild. So we have it's kind of quiet on questions. I mean, it might be an early Friday today. I'll give your day back to you folks. Isn't it cheaper and easier just to use a Nokia phone with a mobile contract and Linux? Okay, so so this gets Margaret. Can you stop sharing your screen and see if you can figure out where that demo was, where we were doing the URL, the Apple script? Remember the Apple script on
yeah,
my
we might have put it into BVA. Hilariously enough, I put it into the dev beaver collection of nonsense. Let me look.
Oh, down at the bottom of the screen. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to show that, so here's the deal: is that back in the old days, back when we walked 5 miles of snow barefoot uphill both ways, we're talking like the 90s, late 90s. You could send pager calls, and we could do text messaging back in the day. And what you would do is you'd run into, okay, we built this button in BVA, right? So this is kind of a fun one right here. and double click it. Let's take a look at what it does. So it runs a script called SMS test. So what this is it's going to run an Apple script on my Mac.
Oh, okay. I didn't. Oh, that was a script parameter. Hold on. Edit.
Edit. There you go. And this is the Apple script. So this is, if you're going to do this in Windows or something, you have to get a way to where the local computer, the copy of Pro, is going to be able to send the message out to a message app. This actually works. In fact, if you want to just run this, Margaret, and you have your phone, and you can see this run. So it pops it sends out the message to it sends it out over here. It's gonna send the message out to this app over here on my Mac. So is it simpler to do it? This is definitely what I would call level 10 janky kind of deal in terms of it actually being something you'd want to use, because it's dependent upon a copy of Pro that's running. And if someone else, like the idea is in Big Valley, if any one of the employees on any workstation needs to order a part, they're going to go through a script, and that script most likely will have it dispatch it out of the FileMaker server, right? So we're going to send it. Oh, did it go?
Oh, hold on. I got to make this smaller so you can actually see the crime being committed.
Okay.
So
Okay.
You see the messages coming out?
Here is the deal on this. So let me, Margaret, why don't you quit sharing briefly here real quick, and I'll just share with this real quick. I want to, this is, this came up and me and Margaret were discussing this. So once again, I'm going to do a screenshot here. This is from us talking about other stuff here real quick, but the idea, let me pop that up. There I am. Is that where is the message going to come from? So the way that we've set this up, if I activate my drawing tools and I can draw over here, hopefully that's useful. A script has to run with that. Go back up. We have a scripted process that for whatever reason, if the day is Monday and this condition exists, send out this text message. So it's an if statement. It's logic. It's probably in a script. It should be in a script. So some FileMaker applications running a script. Where can you run scripts? You can run scripts up here. You can run scripts over here. You can run scripts over here potentially. You can definitely run scripts over there. I'm just going to undo these. But then each of these people have to have that messages app or some sort of equivalent set up and installed on their individual devices. So in terms of overhead and getting it to be set up and running reliably, it would be very brittle because someone changes their email, someone doesn't work for the company anymore, pick the issue. You want to have one SMS system set up, and then everyone is going to use that SMS system there. That's the plan with this. Everyone, and so what I'm going to do is I would say, when we get to a spot that we think we should run, I'm going to tell the script on server using PSOS. Oh, that sucked. PSOS, that turned into a bunch of characters. You get the idea. It's going to run the script and shoot it for us. So I want the script here to run up here. Now, here's the rub. Oh, well, why don't I put the messages app up here? Okay, the messages app up here. The sandboxing. So sandboxing means that apps on an operating system, one app can't talk to another app. So Microsoft Office can't talk to FileMaker Server, vice versa, unless you do URL protocol or something like that. So generally, the apps cannot talk. As a result, it's really hard for FileMaker Server to communicate with anyone. Very difficult for that to happen because they're sandboxed. They were literally in their own little environments. It's to help prevent fraud, mostly fraud people from building an app that gets into other apps that steals your credentials for your bank account or something. It also is good for stability. So if you have an app that sucks in terms of stability, like some of you have trying to use FileMaker 10 on your computer, I know because I've talked to you, and you're complaining that it crashes about every 10 or 12 seconds. So if FileMaker is running in a protected spot in memory, other apps can't get into it. And B, if it crashes, that little memory space is blown out and reset. The rest of the computer, the other apps that are running parallel to it, are protected. So having apps in their own little sandboxes is a good thing for stability and also for safety and security. So you really can't jury rig the messages to work on the server very easily. About the time you get it working, it'll be a little brittle, and you'd be better off just setting it up with Twilio. Well, I don't want to have to wait a week for it to happen. Okay, this might be briefly faster for you to set up, but you're gonna waste a week worth of time supporting it over the next 6 to 12 months. And when I say set up a week, it's not solid work for a week. You have to spend 5 or 10 minutes here or 30 minutes here, then wait a couple, 3 days, then 5 or 10 or 30 minutes more getting the driver. We had to get the driver's license from the guy at Big Valley, right? And then we have to get their EIN and do all that stuff. So you have to go back and forth with people. It's a pain in the ass, but it'll be robust and generally maintenance free. Whereas if you're trying to jury rig the messages thing that Margaret was doing, it's going to be brittle. That makes sense? So all these are going to call a PSOS script, and then we're going to run that URL script that you saw, Margaret. Well, I would prefer to run it from the server, because if you have to run insert from URL on the iPhone or on WebDirect or something, I don't want to triage why the insert from URL didn't work from that client at that time. I'd rather just a server to run it for me. So
yeah.
you build. Does that make sense, Margaret? So really,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
the brittleness of it, yeah. So
Yes.
questions?
No. I mean, yeah. I mean, I imagine as we will be doing this again at some point in a year or two, and the regulations will probably have gotten tighter in some way or fashion or form.
Yeah, it could be.
Well, email only ever gets more difficult, right? It never gets easier. It just gets harder.
Yeah, emails that way, SMS that way. Any mechanism where you're aggravated by people trying to sell you bullshit, like beating on your front door, demanding that you buy solar, to the point where I almost had to call the cops on a guy. It was not good. Yeah, so it's 45 minutes today, but I think all of you, I think we've got this. So once again, we needed something for our customer. We tried to build it real quick, and it turned into a long, drawn out thing.
It's a week-long process at least.
Yeah, but not a week of work. Just it's from the time you start it to the time when they're finally fully approved, you're probably looking at a solid week. Yeah, so if I provide an API with my Nokia and present it in a halfway professional manner, then it's business ready. Yeah, Nokia phone, right? Yeah, if you could actually, yeah. The point is, we're not trying to use extra hardware or dedicated client-facing software. It goes up to the cloud, right? So I mean, yeah, but yeah, yeah. There you go. Ship it. All right. Well, that's it for today. Thank you. Yeah.
That being said, I can't even like hit the end music. You have to do that.
I have to. Margaret wants to cut me off before we say something really. I'm sorry.